Hello everybody and welcome back to Tier 2 Talk, the Australia Championship with your host Kim McKenna here as always, back for another week, and it is a wonderful time as we've finished the group stages. 6 rounds of hard-fought football has come to an end. We are now moving on to quarterfinals this coming weekend, meaning we only have 3 weeks left of the Australia Championship, but I feel it is saved the best for last. Hope you all have been doing well. Hope you've been enjoying the Australia Championship, but also the international break that's been delivering some great scenes over the course of the weekend. I just finished watching the Scotland-Denmark game, and that was a really good game as well there. So really hope you are enjoying all aspects of football, no matter where you are watching from or listening to this around Australia. Thank you for always your support and listens and everything you guys have done for Tier 2, and we hope to just keep building on and on. So, what to expect in today's episode? We have a very big guest joining us later in the episode. We have Wests Apia's head coach, Franco Parisi. He's been on the show as like a post-game interview the last few weeks. We've finally got him on for a full interview, and we'll pick his brain about his long tenure and connection with Apia as both a player and a manager, his side's success in the group stages, this weekend's Derby d'Italia quarterfinal, and how Wests Apia are shaping for the future. Plus, we've also got new power rankings to come at the end of the show. We talk about all the quarterfinal matchups coming this weekend and so much more. As always, at the start of the episodes, I ask if you could follow on Instagram, Spotify, Apple Music, and Twitter. 5-star reviews on Spotify if you do feel so kindly. And always let me know what you guys are thinking. I always love to get your opinion and see what you guys are thinking about the football. But moving on, we head into the news, and the first bit of news we have to do is our giveaway time. So last week's episode, we reached 100 followers on Spotify, a very big achievement for us. And I said I'd do a giveaway for tickets for this weekend's quarterfinals and told you how you could enter from there last week. And now we are about to do the draw of the giveaways. I don't know who's going to win. This is a live draw. I've put all the names in the big spinny wheel, and I'm just going to click spin, and whoever name comes out will get the quarterfinal tickets, and I will message them later on. So good luck. Just spun the wheel here. And the winner is... Oh, this is tight. It's just ticked over to the next person. Congratulations, Robert Hunter. He has won our 2 quarterfinal tickets for this coming weekend. We'll message you on Instagram there too. So congratulations to Robert. Thank you everyone for entering as always, and thank you for your support on Spotify as well. It really means a lot to me, and I hope that we can just continue to keep building in the final few weeks here of the Australia Championship, and then over the summer break we'll take our break, and then we'll come back firing in 2026. Now, moving on to bigger news, and the biggest news of the weekend actually comes from 2 different clubs, but it's the same story in coaching departures. Both Sydney United 58 and Sydney Olympic have announced that they have made coaching changes after the Australia Championship. Ante Juric is out at Sydney United 58, and Sydney Olympic have let go Labanol Haliti there after, I would say, disappointing Australia Championships for both those sides, but you could also say disappointing NPL seasons for them as well. Sydney United, we talked a few weeks back about their abysmal performance as a club, not only on the field but off the field. You could tell by the last few games at Sydney United, the fans, there was a very big disconnect between the senior players, the coaching staff, and the fans. The fans were calling for Ante's resignation at their last game against Wests Apia. So it was always in the cards, and you can't say you are not surprised. And I think going into next season, Sydney United needed a full club rechange, and it needed to start with the head coach. So they'll have a busy off-season now, trying to find a new head coach, trying to, it won't be hard to improve off this season because they didn't do well in the Australia Championship, but hopefully you can find a manager that can lead his team back to the heights that the club deserves, get the players back in with belief, get the fans back into Adenda Park with belief, and hopefully do better next season. Sydney Olympic, on the other hand, they've actually made a few big changes this morning as well. I saw they announced Haliti last night, but I also saw that let me just pull this up here. there has been a change as Damon Hanlon has also resigned as his role as director and president of Sydney Olympic Football Club. So I think Sydney Olympic are actually going to go through the biggest shakeup over the off-season. Not only do they need to find a new head coach to lead them on the field, they'll also need to find a new president to lead them off the field. So really big shakeup for Olympic. I think this is a really big time for Olympic. A lot of fans weren't happy with Haliti and his performances. He missed out on the NPL finals. Again, I think it was 2022 the last time they made the finals. Missed out on the quarterfinals of the Australia Championship. Now, if luck went the other way, they would have easily been in the quarterfinals. But in football, if luck's not on your side, it's not on your side. And unfortunately, it wasn't for Olympics, so they're out. Haliti's now out of the job. He stays in contact with Olympic, I think, with their JDL program, like their Junior Development League football. So I think he's still in charge there. But in terms of the senior men's coach job, he is out. And yeah, I think for Olympic, it's a big time for them because it can go one or two ways. If they get the right president, the right head coach in, then they could really soar and become the club that they were and the national champions that they have been of the past. But if they don't get this correct, they don't get the right people in, all the right timing or whatever, then it could see another spell of long, disappointing football for Olympic. Their fans have been without success now for, I think, 4 or 5 years was the last time they did anything in the state leagues. They haven't done anything in the Waratah Cups or the Australia Cup. So really important summer now for Sydney Olympic as they look to reset and go again come next year. But both those clubs made the call early, just here in mid-November, and so it'll give a lot of time for them to find the right next head coach or right president in Olympics' case, and then move forward into NPL season, which will start probably, I think, February is usually the start date. So it won't be too long coming for the new managers to be announced. But yeah, that's the biggest news as well. And one thing that I thought of last night is all three foundation clubs that didn't make the quarterfinals, so Olympic, United, and Preston, will all have new coaches next year. Now, I don't know if Preston I think it is confirmed that Louis Acevic will step down as the Preston Lions coach after this season. And I don't know if it's confirmed, but I think, yeah, Louis Acevic is stepping down at Preston, still staying in charge. And I think former Avondale coach Zoran Markovsky is coming in to take the helm there. I don't know if that's confirmed yet or it's still just Twitter rumors, but I know it's been going on for a while, those rumors. So big change-ups to those foundation clubs because foundation clubs have been the one leading the way and they won't satisfy for not making the quarterfinals of this year's tournament. So they'll need to do it again because after next season, they won't be guaranteed in those spots. So they really need to make a good impression in the first 2 years before things get a real shake-up here in the championship. Now, to go on to last weekend and my thoughts there, and the final day did not disappoint. We went to 2 games over the weekend. If you were following on Instagram and Twitter, you would have seen our match day vlogs, and we had drama on the South Coast on Saturday in what was a wild 5-0 thriller. We'll get more into that in just a little bit here. And then we had a major group shake-up on Sunday with teams dropping from first down to third, third to second, first. Like, it was all over the place, all over the equations as well. So to go into our weekend awards, the best crowd is the Wollongong Wolves crowd. It helped that the team gave them hope. That's what I said at the start of the game. I'm like, even if they don't get the 6 goals they need, they just need to give the fans hope. And they did just that. The fans were into it. It was a really tight game and it was a really good atmosphere. Best food goes to Wollongong Wolves. Best ground goes to Wests Apia, though. Leichhardt Oval can't really be beaten. Full grounds, and especially with the field at Wollongong Wolves, was very patchy. So Wests Apia win by a long shot. Best team was Wollongong Wolves. I thought they put Marconi to the sword. There's no doubt about that. But yeah, they were really good for their money, and I think it's a promising sign for the Wolves. And obviously, the best game goes to Wollongong Wolves and Marconi as well. Now, at this point, we usually read out the team of the week for the previous week, but that hasn't come out yet, so you might just have to keep an eye on our socials to see when that team of the week comes out. Either my socials or the Australia Championship, one of the two, but it should come out within the next day or two, I imagine. So we go into our round 6, the final match day of the group stages review, and we start with the Friday night Perry Park showdown between Moreton City Excelsior and South Melbourne, where Moreton City Excelsior got the job done against South Melbourne, holding the Hellers to only a point for the first time in this championship with a 3-3 draw. Though Excelsior did it the hard way after an hour of rain delay and lightning, the Queensland side were down early 2-0, just like they were against Olympic the week prior, with Oliver Laval striking early for the away side before Manuel Bernarda got a second for Melbourne. Though by the time the clock struck the 20th minute mark, it was 2-2 and Moreton's quarterfinal hopes were back alive. Kadaro Kojima scored an absolute worldie to spark the life back into his side before Declan Smith brought the sides back level again. The game settled down with the half ending 2-2, but South would throw the next punch in this Group A clash with Charlie Leach scoring the next goal. In the final 15 minutes, Moreton would secure their passage into the quarterfinal with Luka Yankovic, brother of South Melbourne captain Marko Yankovic, scoring Excelsior's third, just like he did last week. In the dying moments against Olympic, Yankovic found himself on the score sheet, providing the critical point that Excelsior needed. Moreton City would now join South in the last 8, following them down to Melbourne for their quarterfinal day. South Melbourne, they were able to rest players, not a fully changed squad. They still had Jankovic and your Bernardes playing, but they were able to rest different players throughout the squad, which was good for them, especially with the long delays in Brisbane. People didn't have to make the travel, so we were rested for this weekend's quarterfinals. Kicking off on the Super Saturday, it was the all-Melbourne derby between Avondale FC and Preston Lions. Preston needing 3 points to secure their spot in the final 8, though the Lions did fall at the last hurdle, unable to beat fellow Victorian rivals Avondale and letting their quarterfinal spot slip out of their hands. Preston, with their destiny in their own hands, didn't come out of the cage firing, with the home side dominating the first half and early chances. Ryan Scott in the Preston net was called into action multiple times, keeping his side in the contest. Though the Victorian Premiers would strike first through Blake Carpenter in the second half, the Avengers would continue to threaten and take control of the affair, but the Lions would hit them against the run of play, with Jonas Markowski scoring a crucial goal for Preston. The game would end though 1-1, with Avondale getting a good hit out against Preston, who they didn't suffer defeat against in their 4 meetings this season. Preston kept the door open to their quarterfinals hopes, but ultimately would lose it come the end of round 6. Like I kind of said at the top of the hour with the coaching changes, it's a disappointing end to Preston, who have been one of the most ambitious clubs over the last 18 months. Through the fact that they didn't make the quarterfinals will be seen as a disappointment for the Macedonian club. Though, according to rumours and things I've seen on Twitter, I think Preston are shaping up for a massive 2026 with new coaches and star new players coming in. So I feel this won't be the end of the Preston story, but I feel not making the quarterfinals will leave a fire in the belly of those Preston fans and players. The 3:15 game was at Collegian Sports Centre. This one we were at the Wollongong Wolves and Marconi Stallions game, and I think it's one of the best games in the Australia Championship short history that I've seen. Needing 6 Wollongong, they fell short and scored 5 in a 5-0 win over Marconi. I've never seen a team less excited after beating a team 5-0. Both teams walked off the field just despair and no enjoyment whatsoever. They got 2 in the first half, they got 3 in the second, had multiple chances to find that elusive 6, but ultimately fell agonizingly short. It was a fantastic effort by Wollongong, who I think deserved to go through based off their performance on the final day. Like we talked about with Alex last week, he said that it was unfortunate they left themselves in this position, but they have been getting better week in, week out. And I do believe that the second half of the championship was a lot stronger from the Wolves. They beat Hobart, they drew to Heidelberg down in Victoria, and then they smashed Marconi on the final day. So it's really that first half of the performance, that 3-0 loss back-to-back with Marconi and Heidelberg is what they'll be kicking themselves in. Like I kind of said with the fans and the crowd, it was always about giving the Wollongong faithful hope and getting them into that game, and they did just that. And I think the fans there, Luke Wilkshire said in a video post-game that they do have the potential to become something next year. I think the key for them will be keeping key players. Now, they signed a lot of players just for the championship run. Now, they're not sure whether they'll stick around for the NPL season or the next championship or whatever. But I think this is a sign that with the right investment, I think Luke Wilkshire can be the man to lead the Wolves back onto, say, NPL finals and Oz Championship quarterfinals, stuff like that. I think he got the right man in charge. I think he just needs to be given the right players. He's already got Nicholas Olsen, Lachlan Scott. They're probably not going anywhere. They need to bolster that midfield, and they need to keep that attack really strong, because I think ultimately what we've seen in the championship, but also the NPL, is you need a really good defense, because you can always get good attackers, you can always get good speed, but if you have that solid back line, which is hard to find, and that's where the key lies for them. For Marconi, I'm going to be really blunt, but they progressed, but you can't be happy with that result. They never looked like they went out in this game going to win or wanting to win. They rested a lot of players. Marko Jesic was out. Franco Maia were both on the bench. Anton Milinaric was not in the matchday squad. DNC Jake True, Willie Akio, like a lot of key players that have been playing over the last few weeks weren't either starting or on the bench. So they rest a lot of players, and unlike, South Melbourne, Avondale, and Heidelberg, who were already in those quarterfinals going into this weekend, those three Victorian teams actually played stronger squads than Marconi did, and Marconi weren't guaranteed to make the quarterfinals going into this one. I got the impression that they went out there to Wollongong going, we just need to avoid a 6-0 defeat, and we're sweet. And they took that risk, resting players and doing all that, but by the end, it was a great escape. Like, they were very lucky. Wollongong had a chance literally 2 meters out in the 95th minute to score a 6. And if they score there, then you can't really blame anyone but themselves, Marconi, that they didn't make it through. Now, what else did I write down? They were the best defense in the tournament prior to this, and yes, rest a lot of squads, but, this will look really bad on Marconi and the confidence they have, because, like I said, they made it through to the quarterfinal, but they were not happy at all. And now they head into this weekend's quarterfinal against Apia, away at Apia, and they've got to pick themselves back up. Now they'll play their full strength squad again, but you have to imagine that camp is feeling a bit low after literally avoiding getting knocked out by a matter of meters in this one. It wasn't like they lost 2-0 and Wollongong never really had a chance. Wollongong were in with a fight and nearly caused the upset. I saw someone on Twitter said, now this result for Marconi will either mean they will light a fire under their ass and they'll go through and possibly win the whole thing, or they will absolutely crumble and get beaten by Apia this weekend, and that'll be the end of the season. So, really interesting tale for Marconi now, who do need to respond quickly after this one, because it was a really poor showing from them against Wollongong. Moving on to Sunday action was Broadmeadow Magic and Sydney Olympic in a dead rubber game up in Newcastle. Dead rubber because Morden City locked up the final spot in Group A on Friday night, though Olympic did finish strong in the championship with a 4-2 win. It was a disappointing finish for Olympic, which ultimately sees Haliti lose his job. And like I said, with a little bit of luck here and there, if they didn't blow that South Melbourne lead in round 4, they didn't blow the lead against Morden City last week, then it could be a different story for Olympic, and they could be in the quarterfinals with Haliti still in their coaching role, but ultimately that is football. For Broadmeadow, I think they represent the northern New South Wales region with pride. They fought in every game and were really competitive. They were really in with a shout at that halfway point of the championship to possibly get out of the group. Now they lost at home to South Melbourne. I think that was the key. That really good fight there, but they lost there, and then they went up to Queensland, lost 5-1, and it was all over from there. But they did themselves proud, and I'm sure they won't be strangers in the Australia Championship. The last game down in Tasmania for the championship saw South Hobart pick up their first point all tournament against the toughest opponent in their group in Heidelberg. They led the Burgers 1-0 in the early goings of this game down in Tasmania, though 2 quick goals in succession after the halftime stoppage saw the Group Lees retake the lead. But South Hobart's Nicholas Morton would equalise and earn the home side a well-deserved point. It was a brilliant end for the team for Tasmania, who, although didn't get the points to show for it, represented themselves and the state very proudly, and possibly with a bit more support and possible investment from state, from club, from wherever, I think could really be a good addition to the championship and represent an untapped market from Tasmania. Metro Stars and Sydney 958 was also 1 o'clock TK show reserves in what was a do-or-die game for Metro Stars, needing all 3 points, and they took care of business and booked their spot in the quarterfinal with late drama. Needing all 3 goals, the 2-0 win for Metro with goals from Michael Chinadini and Hamish Gow marks the 4th game undefeated and a strong run home for Metro Stars, who have won their last 2 games. Sydney United, they end their disappointing Australia Championship campaign. It comes to a close, and with a serious overhaul and restructure needed, and with Ante Juric heading out the door on the Monday, I feel that rechange and restructure has already started at Sydney United, and it'll be not a long off-season, but a busy off-season for the club from Adenza Park. Canberra Croatia and NWS Spirit was a win and you're in game situation come 4:30, and Canberra Croatia, the home team, had the anticipation. They were still involved in the quarterfinal hunt on the final day, but ultimately it was NWS Spirit who booked their spot in the quarterfinals, capitalising off Preston's missed opportunity and pick up a 1-0 win in the nation's capital. Canberra were already facing an uphill task, needing to score, I think 6 goals was it ultimately on the final day, but they didn't help themselves and self-destructed, gifting Spirit the game's lone goal. Jackson Brown scored off the poor passing at the back and gave Spirit the 3 points they needed. Canberra were one of the biggest surprise of the championship and demonstrated there is a major need for a permanent team in the nation's capital, whether that be A-League or whether that be championship. I believe that they were a great addition, just like South Hobart. They had really good fans wherever they went, home or away, and I think that the club is making a next step and could possibly make even further steps and have room to grow over the next coming years. For Spirit, I got to tip my cap and say I was wrong, because I tipped them to finish last in their group after losing their head coach in David Perkovic, their top goal scorer in Kubo. I thought that they were going to fold in on themselves and not really give Preston or Avondale a good run for their money. But ultimately, even though they lost to Preston 3-0 in round 4 at home, and you thought that was the end of their campaign, they went on the road. They got a hard-fought draw against Avondale. They picked up the win on the road at Canberra now, and now they set up a huge game down at Lakeside this weekend. And now we'll cut over to our interview with Franco Parisi, in where we'll talk about the final game we have left to review in Wests Apia and Bayswater City. And we'll also talk about the first game we have to preview in this weekend's quarterfinal matchup. It's Wests Apia and Marconi Friday night, 7:45 at Leichhardt Oval. So we'll cut to that interview, and I hope you enjoy. Welcome back, everybody, and now we are joined with a very special guest. We are joined by the head coach of Wests Apia, Franco Parisi. Franco, thank you for joining the podcast, and how are you doing today?
Absolute pleasure. I'm doing very, very well. It's a lovely sunny day in Sydney, looking outside. It's spectacular. Everything going well, and once again, pleasure and privilege to meet you.
Yeah, you're exactly right. It's a glorious day here in Sydney. I think it's 35 degrees, though I think, unfortunately for the both of us, Friday night is looking like it's going to be a bit of rain and stormy weather, so it might change very quickly on us.
Yeah, look, we hope it doesn't, but it seems to be a theme. Every time we have a night game like at Oval, we've only received rain and storms as far back as, Australia Cup, round the 32 versus Melbourne City, stormy. Then Sydney United, round 2 of the Australian Championship, storming. So we kind of feel as though whenever we book a night match at Oval, the weather gods get excited and they want to watch the game too.
Yeah, and Marconi as well, they've had their fair share of rain delays, because I think the one game they had at night against Heidelberg, that was an hour delay because of rain and lightning. So hopefully we don't have that, and hopefully the football gods can just sit back and watch without causing a disruption. So again, thank you for joining on. We're just going to have a chat about everything you've been doing at Wests Apia, your playing career as well, that some people might not know, that you had a fantastic playing career with Apia as well. And then, of course, the major Derby d'Italia quarterfinal on Friday night. Um,
Yeah.
so, so to start off with, we'll talk about your 4-1 win over Bayswater City on Sunday. And after the City United game at Adenza Park, we talked after that game, and you mentioned how you and your team were excited about getting another crack at Bayswater after that 1-0 defeat over in Perth. So was that the type of performance you were expecting from your side? And would you say that's your most complete performance of the championship so far?
Yeah, look, I think total credit to Bayswater. They picked up 9 out of 9 points at their ground. So there's something in, you know, the effectiveness of how they've played football, how they've approached the championship, and what it means to travel to Perth against a side that's very organised and competitive. And so once we left there, it's a long flight back to Sydney with no points. And so hence the reason we were looking forward to having another go and to allow them to come to Sydney and see how they go in that regard. So it's definitely something that us clubs, we're not very familiar with. But even if you look at the A-League, teams that say going to Perth Glory is a very tough match. If you ask Wellington or Perth for them to visit each other, um,
Yeah.
it's like a different universe if you ask them. So there's something in that. So a lot of why we were anticipating a return fixture is just to have another crack. We were disappointed we had lost 1-0 because we didn't feel that we were that bad, and we probably felt that 0 points coming away from there was disappointing. In terms of was Sunday a most complete, there were some great things, but I think there's an element. It was a hot day. It was a sixth match of the round. It was a Bayswater who were kind of desperate to not concede and to stay in it because they only needed a point to qualify. And so I don't feel that the game had all the ingredients that we would consider a complete performance. Potentially the first half against Sydney United in round 2 at Leichhardt Oval, I think that's been our most complete performance. The second half kind of fell away because when you're winning 3-0 in a game, and we had a lot of opportunities to give players some minutes and to adjust the game, it did fall away a little. But I think that first 45 minutes in round 2 of the championship, like over Sydney United, for sure that was our most complete performance.
Yeah, okay. And like you said, Bayswater were trying to just get a point for you guys. It also a point would have worked. You got all three and secured the top spot in the group. And naturally, the way the quarterfinals worked out, you avoid Heidelberg in that first weekend. You get to host Marconi at Leichhardt Friday night. And was that always the aim of the group stages to avoid any possible trips down to Melbourne in that first round and secure a home quarterfinal?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a short competition, so you need to keep your form and your momentum as high as possible. So it's pretty much the old cliche, taking one game at a time and trying to win every game. And as a result, if you win most games, then you will stay on top and then you can control your destiny as best possible. So there wasn't a specific, let's not play Heidelberg, let's not play Marconi, let's not play Wollongong. It's let's constantly do the best things we can do, be the best that we can be in terms of fitness, player availability, form, consistency, conceding as few goals as possible. And it's slightly disappointing. Jack Stewart's now out for the season. The nasty challenge on the weekend. Jordan Segredo is out for the season. When I say the season, this championship, let's keep it that. And so we've lost two key attacking players that can find the goal from nothing, and that constantly put. But credit to the squad, credit to the club that we do have the depth that now gives an opportunity for some other players to get more moments where they can show that they can score goals too. So in terms of our focus, it's just been win as many games, stay on top, get a home game, try to win that one, and just try to put ourselves in the best position, not knowing where next week will be in the event that we can make it there, not knowing where the final will be in the event that we make it there. So we just give ourselves every opportunity, and there wasn't really a strategy or a task around avoiding a side. Because at this stage, I don't know that playing Marconi is easier than Heidelberg. I would never suggest that because Marconi's a hell of a game.
Yeah. No, exactly right. And as we've seen throughout the championship, realistically, it's been fairly even, and anyone can beat anyone on their day.
Yes.
Now, Mentioning Jack Stewart, that was one of my later questions. I was at the game on Sunday and I saw that tackle, and it was a really nasty tackle on Jack Stewart. And one of my questions later in the further down the pecking order was to ask about Jack Stewart. You mentioned that he's out for the rest of the Australia Championship now with that injury. You also had Sayed Kambiashi. He was out due to illness last Sunday. Barring Jack and Jordan Segredo, will you have, say, Kambiashi back in the squad, or is he still touch and go at the moment?
Yeah, no, Sam actually was back at training last night and looked fresh. We looked better for it. And that's credit to the squad that we were able to, take phase water without him and know that he comes in for his quarterfinal. So there's something good in that. And yeah, throughout the championship, we've played almost all of our players. The three unfortunate that have fallen away. There's Nick Azzoni, who didn't get any minutes, but he's hurt his shoulder.
Yeah.
Jordan Segredo and Jack Stewart. So we've got, out of the 23, three are very much unavailable. So it's a lesson in terms of for Football Australia and for us as well on how do you handle season-defining injuries. And the word season is very loosely thrown about because it's 6 to 9 weeks, right? So competition, tournament, maybe they're better words to use, but how does the FA better support clubs? And they introduced something only a couple of weeks ago, so they have addressed it, but you probably don't keep that in mind at the start of the season where you probably would have had a few more train-on players or people ready to go. Instead, we're still comfortable with the 20 players we have and we'll continue. But I can imagine, Metro Stars might be a little disadvantaged. They lost 2 players out of the game in Perth and I don't know if they've been able to effectively replace those guys. That's for them to comment on. But yeah, it is the reality of sport that injuries, illness, suspensions have its impact. And I'm just glad to say that, Saya returns ready to go. It's unfortunate we've lost a couple of players, but once again, we've got other guys chomping at the bit to say, it's my spot, let me play.
Yeah, and it's a good thing you bring up there because I remember watching a game over the weekend. I can't remember who, but I think they only had a bench of 3 or 4 players because they've missed out on injuries. And, you say the Australia Championship's only 6, 7, 9 weeks long, but all the teams have already played a full NPL season. And yes, you have injuries, say like Jack Stewart, where it's just a matter of a bad tackle on the day. You can't really do much about it, but it is long on these bodies and the championship is only new. So it's that extra bit that players are having to do, the heat as well. So I imagine it's tough for you and other managers around the league to, compact that and make sure your players are staying fresh but not wearing their bodies out.
Yeah, look, from our perspective, we've enjoyed that scenario. What it really means in effect is that there aren't 3-month off seasons that then require 2-month aggressive pre-seasons. Arguably, that's much worse for people's bodies, whether they keep themselves active or not in the off season. There's no way to replicate what you do within a team, what you do within a match. And so whilst we've had to manage workloads in terms of efforts and how people are feeling, we do that naturally anyway at our club. We are semi-professional. So when there's guys that are sore during the season, irrespective if there's a championship to follow or not, we're always thinking player safety, player health, player well-being, well above results. And so from our perspective at Wests Apia, we've been able to manage the guys all season long. And now we get to a point where like, well, this is going to be a lot better scenario playing a high-level competition that's televised, that's fully supported by the media. This is an example. This doesn't happen. This podcast doesn't come up during the NPL season, or if it does, it's not very often. Whereas in this format, the players are playing with exposure at a higher level, great football. We're fortunate to be at Leichhardt Oval, and it means it's not a long off season, and the result will be, guys, after this competition ends, it could be Friday, it could be next Saturday, it could be hopefully the following Saturday. You will then have until the new year to rest.
Yeah.
And that rest won't be too significant that they're going to come in unwell or unfit or well off the mark. So then our preseason starts looking like football, practice matches, and football. It doesn't look like 1 kilometer time trials, 400-meter sprints, box to box. Let's do 2 sets of 8. And then at the end of the session, we'll do 2 sets of 10. And we're going to get under 12 seconds each box to box. So it kind of eliminates that, and it starts looking more like a European season where the guys play all year round and they're fine, and they have that 4 weeks to more mentally than physically just escape the world of football, and then they come back in ready to go. So the added bonus is players are now getting either a longer contract or getting receiving income for longer parts of the football season. Being only a NPL one side, you're limited to that 30 weeks plus whatever arrangements each player makes with the club about pre-season, about semi-finals, about bonuses here and there. But this now allows another 6 to 9 weeks where they can commit to football and they have an opportunity to expose themselves. So, yeah, I hear a lot. I probably answered very, very long, a simple question, but for me, it's a topic that I really want to, force home that it's actually fantastic for the bodies.
Yeah.
It's actually fantastic for football in this country, because if we're going to support the A-League, and that's going to be our role as a championship or an NPL club, if we're not supporting the A-League by getting players ready for the A-League that can then go play overseas, that can then represent our Socceroos, if we're not on that pathway, then what are we really doing?
Yeah.
And so for us, our focus is, if that now means more touch time, the guys working on tactics, working on technique, working on mental stability in decision making. That's a key factor. Decision making under pressure in this country is nowhere near good enough.
Yeah, no.
It's only going to get there through. Sorry, I'm almost.
You're good.
That's only going to happen through repetition. So if you're having September through to January, no competitive matches, you become brain dead. People tell you as you get older, you need to keep your mind busy. It's no different if you're young. If you just start playing computer games and you're not thinking, then it's going to take you another 6 weeks to get back.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and you bring a great point, and probably a point that myself and other people don't think about, because like I'm guilty myself of just asking that question. There was, it's a long season, you add extra games on, but you answer that perfectly, and well, no, the Premier League plays 38 games. Like you said, it's that more European style, and one of the biggest critics of the A-League is how long the off season is. So I mean, it's a great point that you get four weeks off till New Year's, and then like you said, it's just back to tactics and less about fitness, because especially in the summer as well, the last thing you want to be doing is those box to box and all that fitness work.
Yeah, exactly right. So I'm sure there's other views and always opinions as to beauty of football, but from our perspective, that's what the guys have committed to, and that seems to be working.
Yeah. Now I wanted to take a step back. I've found through my research and getting to know you, and people probably don't that listen to this podcast, but you've actually played for Apia over 2 different stints. Your first one was 1994 to 1999, and then you rejoined the club in 2007 and went through to 2002, where you retired with the club. You've now taken over the reins as a senior manager. I just want to know what's so special about this club, Apia Leichhardt, Wests Apia now in the championship, that has made you play majority of your senior career there and wanted to stay and lead the club on as their manager?
Yeah. I mean, I get goosebumps when you remind me actually where it all started. So I was 10 years old when I moved over, but before 10, I was playing at Five Buck, which was my local side, and like I'd only been a couple of suburbs along, but it was the bigger club, the better club, and you still hear a lot of young kids now wanting to play for Apia Leichhardt, and so the age of 10 through to 15, that's where I was, and that's where I fell in love with the club, understanding the passion, the pride, the history, and what it means, and you start getting that competitive blood flow through you. So if you don't have it naturally, which most people do, but then you add into that the competitiveness and the willingness to win from the club with your own determination, it starts forming something inside. And so for me, that's where it all started. And so the only reason I left at that stage is, I went on to join a team that was still participating in National Soccer League. And then I went to the Institute of Sport in Canberra, which was still running at the time of the year 2000, and then had a series of overseas stints. And then also when the A-League started up, played in the first season there. And then at that point, I was at a stage where I probably wasn't where I expected to be professionally, and I decided to step away professionally. And I called up here. I said, I want to come home, and that's probably me emphasizing that it was home, even though I hadn't been there for so long. It was coming home, and some people say that or people do that, but it really was that. And I had an agreement with the honorary Tony Rossetti, who's still very very actively involved. He and I spoke for 10 minutes this morning, and just talking about the importance of Friday night. But Tony and I, we had an agreement that as long as I was playing in the same competition that Apia would be playing in, I would only ever play for Apia. And so that's why I returned and played in the state league. And then one year after the other, after a very short time coming back, David DePuza joined the club, and he was a young 19-year-old, and he was the latest, best talent from the area. And so, I'm 5 years older, but very quickly, we're both from the area. We both similar backgrounds, our families, our friends, and all these things. So then David and I become really close, and that's where you fast forward all these years. It got to about, I don't know, the last 6 or 7 years that we played together. Every year, the season would finish in September. In September, I would go away from football, and I would tell the club, look, I just need some time off, and in a few weeks we can talk about what their season looks like. And then so David and I would call each other, "You're going to play next year?" We'd say, "Yeah, okay, I'll play if you play. Yeah, I'll play if you play." And then we kept doing that year after year after year after year, until it got to the point in 2022 where the club just said, well, how would you like to take over? Daniel Cummings has been brilliant with the club. He's got personal reasons he can't commit anymore. And we don't want to take it to market. We want someone who's a leader within the group. And so I said, no, I don't want to do it. I don't have the qualifications. I've got zero experience, and they're my mates. I just want to play with them. I don't want to coach them. Come on. Fast forward 2-3 weeks, I'm ringing David. I said, do we want to do this? And it was the same dialogue. Well, if we do it together, we'll do it. So if you do it, I'll do it. If you do it, I'll do it. And so we did it. If you do it, I'll do it. And I accept the role. And at the time, David and I said, well, who's going to be the lead? Who's going to be the assistant? And just based on ability and time to commit, it fell kind of on my lap to take the head role, and David supported. But we do it collectively, right? So that was from the start. And so where I went there quickly is that as a player, Apia was the only place I was going to play whilst I was playing at a semi-professional, at a state league level. There was never a consideration. And so I was extremely fortunate that there was never a tap on my shoulder from the club to say, we don't want you anymore. So there's probably a small credit to me in that regard in terms of maintaining my professionalism, maintaining my fitness, being a leader within the group. There was a few seasons, a few coaches where I probably didn't play as often, and I just walked through that. I worked through what that meant and just kept being a person for the club. And so I think there's some credit from the club to me in recognizing that I'd always put the club ahead of myself. Yeah. And that's what's worked as David and I have worked into the coaching role. Straight away, I adopted a philosophy that we collectively agreed on, that we need to provide the players what they need in the way that we needed it as players. Yeah. So that approach hasn't changed. And I think some people, and I've seen it through good friends of mine, how they were as players, they're very different as coaches. I'm thinking, but hang on, you were only playing 2 years ago. Why are you talking to the guys like that? Like, some guys have been captains, they've been really good players, one of the boys, and then all of a sudden they're the coach and they just have a different approach. And so what David and I set out to do is to, okay, we have to be clear and definitive, and we have to drive it and so on, but we don't have to be above the players, and we don't have to do things that we want. So we call it a playground. We try to give the guys a playground. And so for us, the club Apia has always been the club that we're passionate about. In terms of location, yes, it makes perfect sense. I'm one set of traffic lights away from home, and it's always been that simple for me. But it's more than that. The location, the community is fantastic, but it's just something about the connection people find with this club. It stays with you. And what we're finding at these games now, and I'm sure you're going to get to this point about what are we expecting as a crowd Friday night, I'm seeing faces that I haven't seen for a long time. And that's when it shows me that it's in there. And I'm pointing to my heart now. I know we're on the phone, but you can imagine me pointing to my heart. It's somewhere in there that people just can't deny it. Whether they have bad experiences as a player with the club or whether they know someone, they still can't deny the love and care they have for the club. And this is where we support the championship, that it's allowing people to evoke these emotions that have been suppressed.
Yeah.
And they've been suppressed because there's nothing to bring those emotions out. But now when they're seeing a team play a brand of sexy football at a ground that looks as sexy as Leichhardt Oval, that's televised on SBS, that's getting media exposure, that's promoting, a Japanese player, a Canadian player, the best of local talents from Sydney and around Australia, you can't help it but to want to follow. So yeah, it's a big answer for a simple question, but I think for me, the age of 10 to 15, something stayed with me, and it'll never go away. And so as a coach, it's a small way to give back to that in terms of not just the club, but the whole community of football. And so David and I just set out to give the players everything they need. And again, similar to what I touched on before, for us to be able to support our players to be successful, to enjoy their football, and for those players aspiring to play at the next level, for us to support the A-League, who then supports above and beyond that. So, yeah, I love what I do. I hope to help players as much as possible, and that's where it stays with me.
Yeah. And that, yeah, a really beautiful answer. Like, yeah, answer that question and so much more. Um, you kind of touched on, you directed to one of my questions I had again later on, but might as well talk about Leichhardt Oval. It's been a fantastic venue for you guys. It's only gone up. I've been to all 3 games now at Leichhardt, and you've seen the progression. You had the digital scoreboard on the far side, the big screen on the hill on the right-hand side. And I think, from going down to Melbourne that opening week through to Marconi, Wollongong, Sydney United, yourselves, up to Broadmeadow, going around the different grounds, I think Apia has been one of the best clubs in terms of fan interaction and getting fans into the doors and, making merchandise for fans to wear and wear proudly at these games. And it's just been a really good atmosphere and vibe at Leichhardt Oval for you guys. So my next question is, you've already touched on it, but how special will it be on Friday night to see Leichhardt Oval packed? And, if you've got a prediction of what you could get in terms of crowd, what are you guys thinking? But, you couldn't ask for anything better than a Leichhardt Oval Derby d'Italia.
Perfect location for this event. And it's the 5th time we've played each other this season, and we've played each other many times. But to play Marconi at Leichhardt Oval on a Friday night, you can't set a better picture. It's just perfect. Arguably, Marconi would say Marconi Stadium, but in reference of bringing something to a local ground in the inner west, within the CBD distance, it's going to attract all those football lovers. And we got the Big Blue the following night. So Sydney FC fans, they got a massive feast because a lot of them are still Apia fans. So they should be able to come out Friday night. We're expecting, weather may have a small influence on this or a big influence, hopefully not, but we're expecting, 4,000 to 5,000 people that really just want to see the best that football can offer in a knockout game. So much to play for, so many exciting players to watch. And I think both clubs have done their fair share to activate their community. And you mentioned that the previous games at Leichhardt Oval, there's been a community, a lot of credit to a lot of people to promote it. And I think it's because they've been able to tap into what I mentioned earlier, that they're bringing a purpose for those people that have suppressed emotions. They're allowing that conversation to talk to people and say, you know what, I'm going to go. I want to go. I need to go. And it's got to a point where people need to be there, as opposed to, I got a free ticket, I got nothing going on. They asked me to come, my mate wants to go. It's not that. People are feeling the urge. I want to be there. I want to see this. And I'm not saying that to try to put a spin on it. It's what I'm feeling. So last Sunday, I saw so many people I haven't seen in years, and they just said, I needed to be here. I just couldn't not watch you guys. And we'll be here again next Friday night. And that was before the game started. So look, we've got a job to do today. Bayswater, a great side. It's going to be tough. I said, no. We'll be here next Friday, and we'll be here as long as you guys keep going. So we're with you and so on. So yeah, that gives me confidence that the people I saw last week, they're going to be there. They're going to be there, plus more.
Yeah. Um, yeah, no, exactly. And that's been the one good thing is that you guys just continue to grow. You know, you had that 4,000 at it, the first game against Sydney United, and I feel with the stage set for Derby d'Italia Marconi, you can't really you can't expect anything less than 4,000. Like you said, weather pending. Um, I want to kind of touch on the transition that Apia has been going through over the last 18 months since the announcement of the championship. You're now West Apia, going into the championship. Does that movement from Apia Laika into West Apia show the hard work that's going on behind the club to really make this a club of the future and really push the direction of where the club wants to move forward to?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's been no secret that that we are a foundation club, and there's no secret in how much work's been happening for years and years and years. And that's from a RPLICA perspective. And then parallel, you've got a club, West Ashfield Leagues Club, which is part of a group that has other additional facilities and clubs and teams, West Tigers in NRL. And so you've got this club working its way that they've got a massive appetite for sport and sport to be successful. And then you put up your like next to it, and we've got a massive tradition of wanting to be the best possible in the country. Now, whilst we don't play an A League, whatever we participate in, we strive to be the best. So then when these two parties start dancing together, this is the result. You start talking, you're flirting, that they've been sponsors for a long time, and it's been small talk. And then you go on your first date, second date, and we well into the relationship now that, it's husband and wife, or it's brother and brother and sister and sister. So we've got to a point now where the flirting, the small talk, the dates have been so meaningful that we're like, let's get married. Let's do this together. And when you get married, your name's at the joint. It's just a normal part of life. I mean, there's some cultures that don't. There's some people that like to keep half their name and do a hyphen. There's many scenarios, but ultimately, when you marry someone, when you commit to that marriage, you give something up. And so our part of saying we love you, West, is you want to promote your team, your sport, your club. We will do that with you. And West Apia just had a beautiful sound to it.
Yeah.
We are today, and that's something we expect to continue. There'll be the juniors and the youth competition that may remain under the Apia Laika banner, and they're things that I'm not privy to, but I know that we want to talk about the senior space, this Australian Championship, and that's the marriage that has formed. And I think it's been a great one. I think it's allowed us as a playing group to focus on our football and less about what's happening behind the scenes. And for West, it's allowed them to dip their toe into a sport that is constantly growing. Participation rates have been ridiculous for decades now, yet we're still needing a bit more love across the board to compete with our friends of the rugby league and rugby union. But to give West total credit, they have a rugby league side, yet they still have this amazing, I keep using this word, they have this amazing appetite to get part of football. And so it's a massive credit to both parties. And like I said, it's become a marriage now, and it's not going away. So you'll see this name more and more and more.
Yeah. And with that, going more and more and more, what do you see Apia, West Apia, being a club like in 5 years' time? What would you hope to see, and what does the future hold for this merger and for the club from the inner west?
Yeah, look, I'm a real person, so I can only talk from a football perspective in terms of what it means. And I'm hearing you're asking a bit deeper than what I just said, but I'm probably not privy nor qualified to comment on that. But what I will qualify and comment on is the football. It will allow us to continue to develop the best young talent in the West community and even outside that, if people feel, and to allow our pathway to be genuine. So if we continue to participate in the NPL1 and the Australian Championship, then we need to attract and retain and develop the best talent available for them to progress to the A League and above. And now in the event that 5, 10, 15 years later, there's an opportunity for a West to consider being available to get a promotion relegation system in Australia happening, that there could be, then that's potentially something the club would look at. But from a football perspective, we just have to keep pushing the ceiling as high as we can based on where we're at, to have the best available footballers playing the best football and pushing to be at the next level, and then allowing the next young talents to come through. We've got Max Court, we've got Oscar Gonzalez, two 16-year-olds that have played in this championship. Oscar scored a goal on the weekend. Max almost scored a couple of goals in other games. And so these are young guys that normally, typically, would have already explored the I need to be in an A-League setup, and they would be part of a system that they may or may not make it through. But we hoping to give people an option, but it doesn't have to be through that system where there's a lot of players that are in the system. We're saying, no, we're going to concentrate on one or two super talents, the view of let's play 1 or 2 years with men, get you fully adopted to what that feels like, and then you can go to the highest level. So it's from a football perspective, we want to be able to give a pathway for all different avenues. People that have dropped out of A-League, they want a stepping stone to get back. People that are coming through the youth system, they want to have confidence that they can stay within the club that they've been at and get the right coaching and the right opportunity and the right exposure to the next level. Players that have been loyal to the club and have a desire to win, to be able to stay at the club and keep winning competitions and keep being fulfilled with what it means to play this game. And so they're the three main pathways that we're looking to sustain, and that's in our DNA now. And West as a club to support that, they're totally on board and they believe in that approach and that philosophy, and their involvement allows us to keep doing it because we're able to have the support. It's not purely financial. There's so much support around what that looks like. You know, it was a real pleasure on Sunday after the game. Bayswater and us went and had dinner together at the Wests Apia League Club. That is beautiful. That is really, really beautiful. When you go into state, South Australia, Western Australia, Victoria in particular, Common and Queensland, potentially Queensland, they host you in their clubhouse after the game, and there's something lovely about that. In New South Wales, I haven't seen that for a long time, and so to be able to do that, but not just do that in the clubhouse at the back of the ground, but to take them to a facility like Wests Apia, for me, that's mind blowing. I sat there speaking to our friends from Perth, the Bayswater coach, the players, and we were just talking. The game was long over. For them, their competition was over. They wished us well this Friday. And I thought, this is really bringing football to the next level where we can, with confidence, sit at a table together and talk about the beautiful game that we love.
Yeah. And that's been one of the best things about the championship is, bringing new stories to light and new clubs into the fold that, it's bringing the best out of everyone in the football community. To turn attention to this Friday night, you're on a new national stage in the Australia Championship, but you still face one of your oldest and fiercest rivals in Marconi. Your fifth time, you've said already, you've met them this season, your 92nd encounter of all time. You faced a lot of opponents that are new to you, Bayswater, Metro Stars, but now in the quarterfinal, you face someone that you're very familiar with. Does this change your preparations going into this game and how your squad will analyze Marconi going into this?
We've had the same approach for this entire tournament. Probably to answer a little more direct question, when we played Sydney United at Whitecoat Oval, second game of the competition, first home game, there was a real sense of the Australian Championship and it was approached accordingly. But contrastingly, when we played at Sydney United Sports Centre, it did feel like an NPL1 game, and I will concede that. And it was a combination of things. And so fast forward, we're now a few weeks later, and this Friday just feels like something special. It doesn't feel like we're just playing Marconi in the NPL, because we're not. It doesn't feel like we're just playing Marconi. It feels like a quarterfinal of the Australian Championship, and the opponent could be anyone. The feeling, the preparation is at the highest level that it can be. It's exciting that it is Marconi. It's exciting that it's a club that we're familiar with how they play and what they stand for. That is exciting, and that allows probably less analysis and a bit more familiarity around what that brings. But it's definitely new ground for both of us. So the level of preparation for both clubs is just brand new feelings, new spaces for us. And I can't deny that it really does not feel just like a typical Apia versus Marconi. It's heightened times whatever number you want to multiply it by. And the nation is watching. There's no one out there that doesn't know what the championship is right now. Maybe 6 weeks ago, you would have got a puzzled face here and there, or I don't know. There's no one out there that doesn't know what this is.
No, and exactly. And I think once everyone sort of looked at the playoff picture, the quarterfinal picture, and saw that it was Marconi and Apia that could play, I don't think there was any other competition or contest that anyone would have wanted to kick off the quarterfinals.
Yeah, I agree.
So final question. I know we've talked about one game at a time. You've got Marconi Friday. You're hoping to play next Saturday, and you're hoping to be in the big dance on the 6th of December. To go a really hypothetical question to end our wonderful chat here, what would it mean for yourself, the players, the club, fans, everyone involved with Wests Apia and Inner West of Sydney, if you're able to win these next 3 games and have your name on that inaugural Australia Championship trophy come the start of December?
I know I should have a good answer, and I know I've given a lot of answers, but I can't see it beyond Friday, and I don't mean I can't see us going beyond Friday, but I can only focus on Friday.
Yeah.
Just we don't allow our minds to go there. We just don't allow a hypothetical or an imagine. If that's what we're dreaming, then it's in front of us to achieve. We don't have to go to bed at night and think about it. We need to look after ourselves and prepare as best possible, mentally, physically, emotionally, psychologically, commit to what it means on Friday to go to that next step. And then so it's a real boring answer. It's a real answer, but it's honestly how we operate. It's honestly what we believe in. And you know, the reality is come Saturday, we'll know what that looks like for next week.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I understand that answer, and I expect no less realistically. From the professionalism you've shown throughout this interview, throughout the time I've gone to know you, it's always been the next job at hand. So I thought I'd just throw it in there at the end to see what you get to say.
Yeah, look, I'm sure there's club representatives that would have a beautiful answer and would really commit to it. But from a football perspective, that's where I limit my responses. I'm honoured to speak on behalf of the club, and I'm honoured to be able to talk about our players and everything we do. But yeah, I do know where there's a boundary, and a boundary is football is everything to what I can affect, and that's get the boys ready tonight. We'll have a rest tomorrow night, and Friday night, 7:45, kick off at Leichhardt Oval. Hope to have more than 5,000.
Yeah. Franco, thank you very much for this conversation. I really appreciate talking football, Wests Apia, your journey to getting the head coach job at Wests Apia, and I hope to see you there Friday night and have a great game between Marconi and yourselves in Wests Apia.
Thank you so very much. I've enjoyed it, and keep doing what you're doing. It really helps the promotion, the support, and the exposure of our game.
The next 3 quarterfinals following that Derby d'Italia on the Friday night, it's all Victorian matchups. Avondale FC hosting Moreton City Excelsior, Heidelberg and Metro Stars, and South Melbourne and NWS Spirit. The Avondale game is the first one on the Saturday at 12:35, kickoff at Avenger Park, and it's a really interesting matchup between these two sides. Avondale, 3 wins, 3 draws throughout the group stages, and we're really building. They didn't overperform, I don't think, but they didn't underperform. They matched where they needed to be with the players they had. They were confident in the way they played, and they really put a stamp on that Group C there. Moreton City, they proved themselves as fighters and genuine contenders here in the last day. They only loss was down in Melbourne against South Melbourne in round 3, so that's going to be a worrying sign for Cameron Miller there. He'll need to readdress that situation and hope to pick up the win in Victoria this time around. But they have also shown that they do have a lot of spirit. They've gone down 2-0 in their last 2 games against Olympic and South Melbourne over the last fortnight, and they fought their way back and earned hard-fought draws. Though I think this time around, being quarterfinals, they can't afford to go 2-0 down. I think if Avondale get 2 up, then I think it'll be too much for the side from Queensland to pick out. Though I think if they're able to get an early goal or keep this game nice and close at Avenger Park, then they're in with a real shout, because over the last 2 weeks I've been watching them. They have players that can turn something from nothing. So I think Avenel, you got to be careful of that. And I think you also have to just play your fast-paced football, your one-touch football, which I've seen them do over the course of this championship. And, hopefully they get the result and move on into the semi-final. Heidelberg and Metro Stars, the second game on Saturday at 3:35 on SBS at Olympic Park. And it's a really good matchup, this one. Probably the most intrigued one I have outside the Derby d'Italia, because Heidelberg are undefeated in the tournament. They haven't lost at Olympic Park since the Doherty Cup final against South Melbourne back in August. So they have a really good home record at Olympic Park. But Metro, they are 4 games undefeated, including 2 away trips where they were able to pick up points there. So I think these two teams are very much in form. They'll very much give each other a really good fight. And I know both these teams have high-quality players that can either hurt you at one end or keep you out at the other end. So I think that's going to be the key here. Heidelberg, obviously the kings of knockout football with their Australia Cup run. They were fantastic during that, so they know what job to do if that does happen. Metro Stars, they're going to come into unfamiliar territory at Olympic Park, but that hasn't stopped them when they've gone to Sydney United and Wests Apia, and where they picked up points at both those games. They've won their last 2 games in do-or-die situations. They've been playing finals football already for the last 2 weeks, Metro Stars. So I think it will just be no different for Danny Greystone and the boys coming from Adelaide. They know they need to get the job done. They know that they need to really fight, take their chances when they come, and hopefully it will turn out for the best for them. The final quarterfinal game is South Melbourne and NWS Spirit at Lakeside Stadium. This one kicking off at 3:05 on the Sunday. And it's a huge showdown between the best home team of the tournament and the best away team of the tournament, I think. I don't know if that's factually correct, but from my little thought, I think it is. South Melbourne, perfect 9 points from 9 points at home. Haven't lost at Lakeside. They've had some scares, with Sydney Olympic on that opening night. But you look at NW Spirit, they've picked up a win and 2 draws on the road. And one win was against Canberra, Croatia last weekend. But they've gone away to Preston and away to Avondale and picked up hard-fought points there. So on the road, they haven't shied away, especially against Victorian teams. And I think there'll be a sense of familiarity for the boys from Spirit. They'll know which hotels they're staying at. They know where to go get coffee, go for walks, all this kind of things that could play on your mind. But I think it'll be familiarity. They'll be able to get in that rhythm and know that the job is needed to be done. South Melbourne, they'll be hoping to rely on that home field factor in front of their home fans, which will come out in great numbers, and having that kind of time to rest players last weekend against Morden City. Hopefully they'll come into this game really nice and fresh. So that will wrap up our quarterfinal games. We will post those fixtures on the day of the games, and you guys can have your say via the polls on our Instagram. Going into our power rankings now, we have the first 3 teams are unchanged. South Melbourne still leading the way at first, Heidelberg second, and Avondale third. Wests Apia, they climb up into the top 4 after securing top spot in Group D. They move up 2 spots. Metro Stars are our biggest movers this week. They climb up into 5th, up 4 points from last week's power rankings, after securing back-to-back wins and securing their spot in the quarterfinals on the final day. I believe the Adelaide boys are full of confidence right now. As to our Moreton City Excelsior, who are in 6th, up 1 point from 7th last week. Again, a 3-3 draw against South Melbourne. The first time the Hellers have been holed all championship long was a great achievement there, especially fighting back from 2-0 down. NW Spirit also come into the fold, coming up into 7th, 2 spots from the previous week. And again, no one kind of really gave them a chance after that 3-0 loss against Preston at home, but they fought hard and are now into the top 8 and the last 8, I should say. Number 8, it's Marconi Stallions, and I was very close to leaving them out completely of the top 8 after their 5-0 thrashing against Wollongong Wolves. They dropped 3 spots from last week. Yes, they still finished second, but it's a very close one in this regard. They're still a high-quality team. I don't think last Saturday showed the team quality they have, but it's just going to leave a sour taste in a lot of people's mouth, and hopefully that doesn't affect them come this Friday night. So that will wrap up this episode. Another long one for you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed that interview with Franco Parisi. A fantastic chat there. He's always hospitable to me and to everyone in the media field. He's always answering our questions and happy to always talk football. So I appreciate him. Again, if you guys are liking these long form formats and these longer interviews with these players and coaches week in, week out, please remember to like, subscribe, follow on Instagram, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Twitter. That's where we are all over this information in regards to player updates, managers leaving, fixture changes, news, all these sorts of things. We're happy to keep you updated here and just be your news source for the Australia Championship. Like I say at the end of every episode, I hope you enjoy the football. If there are games in your state this weekend, go out and watch them. Like Franco Parisi said, these games are built up for something different. They're not your average NPL games that you may have come to know. They are built different. And if you go to these games, you will feel that. You'll feel the atmosphere that are at these games and are at these that are in deep rooted in these clubs. If you're not able to get to games, watch it on SBS, SBS On Demand, or YouTube. These games are very easy to find and free to wear. So wherever you're watching, make sure you are. Last thing I'll say is that finals football is the best time for football fans. Do or die games everywhere you go. You don't want to miss a thing, as these games could go to penalties, 120 minutes, late minute goal could mean you're in the semi-final or you're out. So there's so much action to catch in the Australia Championship, and I feel this is only going to be the start of what is going to be a fantastic final 3 weeks here to wrap up the inaugural Australia Championship. Thank you very much for listening to this episode. Make sure you tune into our Instagrams for live coverage from the Derby d'Italia Friday night. If you don't see me on Friday, I will see you here next Wednesday for another big episode where we will preview the semi-finals and the final four of the Australia Championship. Kim McKenna signing off. I will see you all next week. Bye, everybody.